I like it that it actually tells me in vocal now that recording is in progress. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Enterprise Agility Champs. This is our first meetup, and we've been planning and preparing for this for a few months now. So we are excited that we are at a stage to welcome everyone and start this community. We are 65 members strong as of today. And the good news is that today we got membership with Agile Alliance community. That news just came in last night, actually, and we are officially part of that network so that we could get a lot of help from, get other speakers and be part of the larger community. So super excited to be here. So I want to do a quick introduction of our team here. We have Irina Fedorovo. Irina, if you want to say a quick hello and introduce yourself. Irina, Kanessa, and I are co-organizers for this.
Irina actually stepped away.
So she stepped away. Okay, so we have Kanessa. Kanessa is also one of our organizers. Kanessa, you want to say a quick hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kanessa. I'm in the local to the DMV area. And yeah, just been wanting to learn more and grow more. So I'm excited that everyone's here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, once again, welcome to those of you who just joined. So Kanessa, Irina, and I are going to be part of this team here, who's going to be supporting and taking things forward, going forward. So a couple of quick announcements. We had said that we are going to make an announcement for the 51st members. So the 50 people who joined this meetup, we have a really something special for you. So we have a custom credential that has been made that you will be able to share. And basically we have named you founding members of this community. So you are founding members of Enterprise Agility Champs. So congratulations. The only thing is that we are unable to send those credentials to you because I think I made a mistake that I had not put in the registration to get your email IDs. So I would need the email IDs from those 50 people or find out another creative way of sending that to you. So we will reach out to you to get that. But yeah, super excited to have you, the first 50 of you, to be founding members of this. With that, let's jump to the main topic today, our first workshop, which is what you always wanted to know about enterprise agility. So this is being presented by Erich Bühler. He is famous and renowned throughout the world. I mean, he is a globally recognized speaker. He's an expert, an entrepreneur, and a leader. And also he's famous for the book that he had read about, written about leading exponential change. He's also the author of the Organizational Pill, a free resource that helps people to learn more about enterprise agility. Without further ado, I would like to pass the microphone on to Erich. Erich, it's all you now.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Very good morning. Very good morning also for me. It's 6 in the morning. I will switch off the camera. I'm in Asia here, and sometimes the connection is not very good, but I'm still here. Hopefully that's going to improve the audio. And today we're going to be talking about enterprise agility, the differences between enterprise agility and agility from my perspective that can be different than yours. But that's good. If that different means that there is something interesting to discuss. And we're going to be here for the idea is I'm going to be talking for half an hour and then we can go for questions. So try to make sure you drop your questions in the chat box and then we have a conversation after. So let's start about organizational change and change management. I remember long time ago when I started my career, I've been working in several countries. I was very excited about a new company. Every time I went to a new company and I tried to understand what happened with this company, I was very excited in my head all the time. All the framework worked, everything worked. But at the time of taking that to the practice, it was very hard, as we always have one problem in companies. There are people, and that's a huge issue. So for our plans, and sometimes things do not work as we expected. And then maybe we go to an organization thinking that something is going to work very well, and then things are not very good, or things that in our head they work very far, work well when they are maybe the framework didn't work, or we had high resistance to change, or people did not like our ideas, or there was some conflict. And this is the kind of thing we find today in organizations, and the kind of things that we have to find solutions. And we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about how to reduce resistance to change in teams. We are going to also be talking about accelerated change and different things that I think are interesting topics. And the idea is that after this conversation, you're going to have a couple of actionable frameworks. I know Toby has been using them. Toby knows them very well, as he's a partner of the Enterprise Agility University. And hopefully you have some fun also. I always say, for me at least, it's fun to know about organizational change and change management. So what happened in companies? Well, sometimes, we need to work with different teams. Teams are intimidated about change, about new things coming. We have teams that basically want to change, or the teams that are not on board, and it takes longer. And how we can take everyone on board, how we can understand what's happening, is one of the first challenges. And one of the things I always say is, as a change consultant, even if you are a change agent, a change consultant, a Scrum Master, or anyone in the organization trying to influence change, the most important thing first is that you change the way you talk, and you try to understand, as if you are talking to someone, you have to use their words. You have to maybe, when we're talking about enterprise agility, we don't even use the words enterprise or agility. We always have to mimetize with the environment, with the people, try to understand how they communicate, how they express. And this is a very important thing if you want to influence an organization, how to communicate to those people, how to communicate to these teams. We have to start thinking of which words they use, which examples they use, what is important for them, and how they move, how they express. And this is the first little step we have to have into mind when we start trying to influence a company. Yesterday, I was doing, a few hours ago, I was doing a presentation for an event, and someone was asking me, how can I push a transformation or change? And this is something we do not want to do. When you are trying to push something, it's because something is broken, right? And one of the most important things here is, how do we scale the agility through the rest of the organization? How we can make sure that we are not just doing that in the IT areas and across the whole organization? How we make sure that, for example, teams or companies are not scared, they feel comfortable with change. They also feel comfortable with you, which is very important. It's a good beginning. And which techniques we can use when we have big organizations, and maybe you have different teams, and teams where there are different kind of people. And this is one of the things that we need to understand how to do. And to be honest, whenever you go through a course, specifically Scrum courses, probably if you are a Scrum Master, or even Kanban courses or Lean courses, they are fine about teaching you about methodologies, practices, etc. But then at the time of being in front of a situation, sometimes you don't know what to do. You don't know how to do your best in order to find a solution for a specific situation. And this is something we are going to also cover today, and I'm going to try to show you a couple of different techniques, right? And one of the things we have to understand, and here we have some contribution from Toby, is that when we are talking about agility, I call it classic agile. I'm so sorry, guys, but we call it classic agile as the theories from agile are great. We have been using them for a long time, but they are from 2001. And I would say a few things have happened from 2001 until now, even probably in the last 2 years. And if you take a look at the Agile Manifesto, the Agile Manifesto says that we are discovering new ways to develop software. And maybe when we are thinking of enterprise agility, we are thinking of expanding agility and flexibility to the whole organization. And this is something we have to have in mind. Classic Agile provides techniques, provides different ideas and practices, but is slightly restricted in certain areas. There is nothing bad about this, but it's slightly restricted in certain areas. So what we generally do when we wanted, or when we're talking about classic Agile or classic enterprise agility is we basically take all the ideas from Agile, all the values and principles, and we try to expand those ideas to the rest of the organization. Now, when we say that, we also say that I also wanted to mention that the main problem with this is that so many things were not considered or did not exist at the time of the Agile Manifesto. So, and also so many things happened. So classic Agile or classic enterprise agility, you take all these ideas from Agile, you put it in a package, in a box, and then at the time you are in a company and you have a problem, what you do is you just basically take something from the box and try to solve the issue or the problem, or try to find a solution for a situation. And this is what I call classic Agile. And we have certain restrictions that we're going to be talking today, right? So classic Agile works fine. We know what to do. We know, for example, exactly what to do, specifically if we are talking about IT teams. But we struggle. And I always say that the first challenge I had was many years ago. I was in New Zealand. And on Monday morning, I was helping a company there. They called me from a bank. And this bank, I expected something very easy, just trying to help a software team with some agile practices. And as soon as I arrived, they say, Eric, well, the problem is not here. The problem is with the financial team, that nobody from the financial team wanted to pair and work with us. So I look at the financial team, I went there and talked to them, and they told me, well, listen, Eric, the thing is we never ever work with anyone. We don't believe that we have to pair with anyone. We always pair in our own, work on our own, and we do not know how to pair, and we think it's not important. And then how you can deal with this kind of situation. Your screen is showing, speaking view. Okay, thank you, Toby. Let me see how to. Can you see it well now, Toby? Is it okay?
No, we are still seeing the speaker view. I think you have two monitors. You probably need to point to the other.
Okay, so we share it. We'll share it again. Let's see how it goes. In the meantime, I'll drink some water. Let's share it again.
No problem.
Is it better now?
Yes, thank you.
Good, thank you very much.
No
So basically, Agile, they work very well. We have a lot of knowledge. We know what to do. Specifically, we're talking about IT teams. But what happened when we are talking about, we are working in other areas. We want to understand what's happening in other areas. Well, one of the things that I will say is, in enterprise agility, we are looking for diverse teams where we have people coming from different backgrounds, different areas. Maybe in one team, we have one lawyer, we have a couple of developers, we have one person from marketing, one person from the financial area. And the first challenge we have there is that from my perspective, what you studied at university or what you study in, your formal studies, generally influence the way you think. When I say that, I mean that maybe visibility for a lawyer is just trying to get something at the end of some process. Then maybe for a marketing person, it's different than the definition of visibility than for a software developer. And then commitment can be different, and everything can be different depending on your background. And this is something very important to understand when we're trying to get into enterprise agility, which involves working with not just multifunctional teams, but teams where we have completely different types of personalities of people. Well, personality can happen all the time, but specifically I'm talking about different backgrounds, right? And this is very, very important to understand. So sometimes classic agile works fine as long as you are doing what you have to do, and you sometimes come up with certain scenarios where there is no clear solution for that. And then you end up many times with solving the problems in ways that are not the best ones, that maybe work, but maybe you have a better way to do that. And sometimes it's a mess, sometimes it's not, sometimes it works very well. But at the end of the day, classic agile works very well in certain scenarios. And you're going to try to understand why. I hope you understand why, and you share your thoughts at the end of this presentation. And the main issue we find with classic agile, as I said, is it is difficult when we need to expand agility to the rest of the company. It's a challenge. It represents generally, or it has certain areas that are not covered, and then obviously change consultants need to find a solution, and sometimes also we don't have a solution. Okay, so we try to push certain techniques that we know, and we generally are what we know. If we don't know something, we are not going to be able to be that. The first thing I wanted to talk that I think is very important is about accelerated change. And this is a key to understand why we need different theories or new theories in the organization, and also why you need to make sure that whenever you are trying to get involved with a huge transformation, you need to start understanding that the pace of change, how the company is affected by this speed of change, will affect or will impact on the techniques you need to use. So this is something is also included in my book, Leading Exponential Change, and it is talking about 5 different areas that is impacting the speed of change. And we're going to see the connection between the speed of change and techniques in 1 second. Well, the first one is unexpected event. That has been there forever, but obviously companies are using short work cycles, and then they are impacting the markets. So when you impact the markets, then you are impacting other companies, and other companies are responding to this and impacting the markets again, and the market impact you. Maybe you are going to release some product, and then you discover the day you're going to release that product that someone releases a better product. So the faster you go, the faster the other companies go, and then that generally creates like a circle, yeah, where it starts spinning up, accelerating, and also increases the unexpected event. The second one is that people and teams are interconnected. A few years ago, before the internet, it was harder to connect people in different parts of the world with different cultures. And one of the things we know is when we have diverse teams with different perspectives, then teams are more creative and they come up with different solutions or better solutions. And that also creates more innovation, but at the same time impact the market and create an unexpected event, or what we call disruptions. And then we have big data also, and artificial intelligence, that we have seen fantastic things in the last few months. And then as a result of that, markets are changing faster and faster. And what happened in company? Well, the first thing that is happening is that it's a decrease in alignment with the strategy. So imagine that you are doing something, you have a strategy, and suddenly something changed, and then people do not have time to adapt. But then as the time they adapt to the new strategy, things change again and again and again and again. So at that point, people start realizing that it's not worth to align, or maybe they try finding a way around so they can keep working, following the procedures, but they do not care anymore about this alignment with the rest of the organization, because they do not have time to do so. And the other thing we have is that the faster the market go, the more market disruption we have, the more internal conflict we can have in the company if the organization is not using the right techniques. And this is something that I have seen personally in many organizations, that things change and people in the organization and teams start fighting for some key people and resources, scarce resources. Imagine that they need things change, and suddenly everyone needs an architect, or everyone needs an expert, and then people start fighting for that. So internal conflict in the organization increases. Also, people feel more nervous about the situation, and that conducts to an increase in dysfunctionalities in teams and also across the whole company. So the first thing we need to understand is that human beings are not physiologically prepared for exponential change, for things changing all the time. Our brains are not prepared. Imagine if you wake up one day and you have 5 kids, and you have your wife or your husband, and then you wake up the day after and you live in a different house with a different wife and with a different number of kids. I know many of you are going to be very happy with this, but that's not going to work very well if it happens once and again and again. In fact, I can't remember the name of the movie that where this guy wakes up every day is different. And that produces a lot of stress in your brain and activate an area of the brain that, well, I will talk about this in a few seconds, but human beings that cannot cope very well with this, and we need to use different techniques. So at the time of the people creating or coming up with the Agile Manifesto, these kind of things were not fully considered. They didn't consider that human beings were not physiologically prepared for exponential change. They did not really consider how the brain works during change, etc. And this is something very important. And that's why we need to go further than classic Agile or classic enterprise agility. And this is one of the things that many of the providers in the market, they focus in classic agility or enterprise agility, which is great, but not for solving certain issues that we're going to see now. So one of the things we have to understand first is that unless you get the right behaviors in a company, it's going to be very hard for you for the change in the company to be sustainable. When I say sustainable, is that even if there are pressure, even people feel nervous, that at least they can keep all these good habits and they do not go back to the previous ones. One of the things we use or we recommend, this is my voice model, which is behavior, objective, impact, and sustainability, is enterprise agility is a cultural change. First of all, it's not about procedures. That obviously we change procedures. It's not about frameworks. Obviously we change frameworks, but it's a cultural change, and also a way to see human beings from a perspective that allow us to create new frameworks and new ways of working that are going to help those individuals to adapt to change. So this voice model for us is kind of the foundations for any change in the company. And basically the voice model says that if you want to change an organization, you need obviously to change behaviors. And if you want to change behaviors, then you should get or try to focus on a few behaviors instead of focusing on practices first, instead of focusing on frameworks. We try to focus first on what behaviors we are trying to get in the company. And imagine that you say, okay, Eric, but I care about DevOps, I care about releasing software quickly with high quality. Yeah, okay, but you have to think of the behaviors first. What behaviors you expect people to have in order for that to happen? And this is the first change or shift in focus that we try to encourage people to take, to move from practices and frameworks and focus on behaviors. What's the behaviors I want to achieve in my organization? And when we say that, we use this voice model to make sure that we focus just on a few critical behaviors. What's the most important? We try to prioritize them. Which behaviors I'm trying to achieve? And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to try to link that behavior with an objective, business objective. And this is crucial for us if we want things to be sustainable. And we're going to talk again about speed of change in a few seconds, but I want you to understand that we start moving away from frameworks, but frameworks are important, or the framework, you know, this is also a framework, and we start to think what's the behavior who I want to achieve and how I connect that behavior with a business objective. This is the first two crucial steps in any modern transformation, in any modern company. Then we try to make sure that we can demonstrate this impact and that people can, they can have a quick win. This is crucial for us. And finally, that is sustainable. And then when we achieve this, we're going to take the second behavior and then we link it with a business objective, and we go once and again and again and again until we make sure that this is working and people start changing behaviors in your organization. And if you cannot change behaviors in your organization, then whatever you do, people is going to lose traction as soon as something happens in the market, right? And one of the things that we have to understand is that in order for this cycle to work, we need to make sure that we have good organizational health, that people in the company feel comfortable, that psychologically they feel comfortable, and they are able to speak, they are able to express their ideas, and they don't have any fear about what is coming up, apart from the normal fear from that it can be the effect of being exposed to exponential change. If you don't have good organizational health, this is not going to work very well, and so we might be able to go for a few behavior, but then that's not going to be sustainable. So let me try to explain to you what is happening in the brain when we are exposed to accelerated change or exponential change, as I call it. The first thing we need to understand is there are certain areas of the brain that activate when things are quickly changing, when there is high uncertainty, where for example, when the positions in the company change all the time, when structures in companies move from hierarchical to flat, where some people might feel that they are losing prestige. And there is an area of the brain called the amygdala that really, when you are exposed to these situations, the amygdala releases some hormones and also, for example, cortisol, and it puts you in a state of alert, but also it makes people feel some fear about what's coming up next. So when people are working long hours, people are exposed to constant changes, teams are exposed to a situation that they were not exposed before, we have on those people a higher activation of the amygdala. And then there is something called mental agility or flexibility, mental flexibility, people become less flexible to change, and then they start protecting themselves on anything that might happen to them. And this is something very important to understand. In order to try to expand agility to the rest of the organization, we need to know which kind of or types of change we need to use based on the type of exposure to change that teams have, and also how comfortable they feel, how much or how good the organizational health is in that company, etc. And we have done a lot of research, and also there are a lot of papers at the moment that says that in a company where people are exposed to organizational change, organizational structures that are changing all the time, then they can become less flexible to change, right? So if things change quickly, if they feel they lose prestige, if there are conflict in the organization, all these people are going to be less adaptable to change. And then the other thing we have to think about is, if things are changing all the time, how, as a leader, how am I going to align those people in record time to my new strategy? Imagine you were, for example, producing some products. I was producing, I don't know, shoes. And then suddenly the market is flooded with cheap shoes, and I need to produce something else. So I have to change the strategy. How do I realign people in record time? And obviously I cannot force people. Well, you could, but that's not going to work very well. And in here, there are certain techniques that we generally use in enterprise agility to try to align people and an organization in record time with the new strategy. The second thing we have to have in mind is, how do we achieve low levels of resistance and high levels of resilience? And this is something that is connected with the activation of the brain and trying to understand. We know very well now in Enterprise Agility University of how and the ways that, of the techniques you can use depending on the type of change you want to do. Certain types of change produce a lot of disruption, and those change require specific techniques. I will show you a few of them in a few minutes. So something I did when I published the first edition of my book, between the first edition and the second edition, is I traveled around the world and I started talking to different coaches in different parts of the world. I asked them a few questions, such as, for example, what is working for you? What is not working for you? What do you think it might work better? Sorry, the photos are not the best one. I should grab a few of them. And then also I asked them, what are you struggling with when you try to expand agility to the rest of the organization? And I tried to make sure they gave me some clue. They told me, you know, sometimes you have to read between the lines and try to understand what is really happening there. And then I was going everywhere in the world, different countries, different cultures, and I tried to see what was working well, what was not working well, which things were useful, which things were not. And I identified certain techniques that they work in all the different cultures. There are techniques that do not work very well in certain cultures. For example, there are some collective techniques that when you take them to certain Asian countries do not work very well, and other techniques that you can bring from there here and that not work very well. So I was trying to be very careful with that. And one of the things we need to understand is what types of agility we need to use when you are trying to expand these ideas to the rest of the organization. And I was explaining there my famous cake, the 5 types of agility. And if you take a look at the photo, there are two people just holding their heads. I don't know what was happening there. Maybe they were thinking, oh my God, why I didn't know this before? And hopefully you're gonna know it today. You're gonna know some actionable steps, how to use them after this presentation. So the first thing that you need to understand, as I mentioned today, is that a cultural change is never pushed. If you have to push a cultural change, it's because it's not a cultural change, it's a cultural torture, as it's not sustainable. You're not going to be able to do it for a long time, and it's not going to be sustainable at all. So at some point, I decided that after interviewing all these guys, that was the right time to take a different direction with different theories. As you probably know, there are many theories about organizational change, and we are trying to create new ones that try to give an answer to the new challenges. The first point here is that when you try to change an organization, it's not just about software or framework. Frameworks are good, software frameworks are good, like for example, Scrum. Well, now Scrum has been expanded to, you can use it everywhere, or software development frameworks. It's about also trying to understand what happened in the brain, trying to understand the social dynamics related to sociology, human behaviors, about psychology. We need to understand so many things that sometimes is a little bit challenging. So at that point, one of my challenges was try to come up with very simple frameworks. Sometimes they're simple, but doesn't mean that are easy to implement. But as a change consultant, I'm sure you're going to be very successful to do that. And trying to change an organization requires the knowledge coming from completely different fields and dynamics. I could create a massive list here. I know that Toby might be able to come up with many things in this list, and you too. And well, we came up with 8 different dimensions and fields that you need to master in order to make sure that you are able to influence a company to go in certain direction, and then this company is successful at trying to embrace all this idea in a sustainable way. And that's part of the Enterprise Agility Master Book. This is the book we use for our courses in Enterprise Agility University that contains part of this knowledge. And then we have a particular Enterprise Agility model that I wanted to share with you. So when we are talking about Agile, we generally mention agility as something very broad, but from our perspective, the classic agility focus on technical agility. Even you can expand it to the rest of the organization. It was born with software, and then some of the ideas applied to software and has a software mindset. And I've been also I'm a software engineer. I work for Microsoft and many companies, so I know how it works very well. But this is just one of the types of agility that we need to master in order to influence an organization and be a successful change consultant. The second one is what we call outcomes agility. Are different techniques that you need to use and practices if you want to make sure that you can align a company in record time. Outcomes agility, it means that you are able to realign your whole structures and people to a new strategy. If the markets change, the strategy changes, your plans are going to change, and you are able to realign the company in record time. So this is what outcomes agility is. Outcomes agility is about budgeting. We cannot be doing budgeting for 2 years or 1 year if things are changing. It's about the type of leadership. It's also about balancing skills in the organization in record time, with the minimum effort, etc. The idea is that I'm able, and we have many different techniques over here, to realign the company with the new strategy in a short period of time and in a sustainable way. Then we have a structural agility. This is what we probably feel more familiar with this, which is how I change the procedures, how I change the roles, how people can feel comfortable with the new procedures. And here we have different techniques, such as, for example, that if we are going to change a role in the company that is going to impact a group of people, then we need to get the feedback from those people and get those people on board so they can also decide on the new role, on the new procedures, etc. So by integrating those people into the design of the procedures that are going to impact them, then you are going to see that these people are proactively embracing these new structures. Otherwise, maybe you can have higher resistance to the new structural ideas that you came up with or someone came up with. The other type of agility is social agility, is how people connect in the organization, in a virtual space, in a physical space. And this is crucial. The way that people connect in an organization means that if they connect well, information is going to flow faster. If information flows faster because people talk about, and specifically we're talking about informal conversations, then it means that if there is a change in the market, then all the companies going to know very quickly, because all the social channels are working very well. One of the things we do in companies to test how well people are connected is what we call the eco technique. I created this technique a long time ago. Is we go to one side of the organization, for example, we spread a rumor, like, for example, from next week, the company is going to pay for the gym to all the people in the, all the employees. Then we mention that to some key people, and then we wait a few days. We go to another part of the company and we say, hey, have you heard anything about some news? And maybe three things can happen there. First is they tell you, yes, they are going to pay for the gym from next week. Oh, great, that's good. That means that it is working very well. Social agility is working well. People are connecting, and that's great. That means that probably there are not many silos. And then you can do that with teams that are maybe together, close by, etc. The other things that you can do is you start asking different teams that they might be working together with the first team. And if they say, no, we haven't heard anything, then that's probably something not going on, something is going on, or there are some dysfunctionalities, or there are some issues there. Or maybe they tell you that is the third option, where we have high distortion of the information. This is something we don't really like. And they tell you, yes, from next week, they're going to pay for yoga lessons. And that means that the information didn't flow correctly in the company. The faster information can flow in the organization, the better people connect. And then here we have also new techniques to work in virtual environments. The easier the company is going to adapt. But none of these four types of agility is going to work well if people do not have higher levels of mental agility. And mental agility for us is the bedrock of all the other types of agilities. As if people do not have higher levels of mental agility, even if you have a great idea or a great framework or procedures or a new strategy, people are not going to embrace it well. Mental agility is related also to something that we call neuroplasticity, which is how your neurons connect in the brain. And there are techniques that allows us to basically include those techniques into existing practices, and it helps people develop more higher mental agility or neuroplasticity. And now the issue with that is, if people are afraid of new situations, if dysfunctionals are very high, Then there is an area, as I said, of the brain called the amygdala activates, and people become less flexible. And then if people become less flexible, mentally flexible, none of the other types of agility is going to be effective. And finally, we have outside this model of enterprise agility, and we have a kind of ring where the first thing we have is how we can make sure that the whole company can adapt to exponential markets, how we can keep an eye on exponential markets, how we can sense, especially for leaders, which techniques they can use and technologies to sense changes in the markets. The second thing is how we build individuals, or what we call exponential individuals, that they can easily adapt to new situations. And there are also techniques we can use here. And then how we can leverage in a way that even if we are going through bad times or disruptions, or someone released from a competing company a better product, now my company can still release innovation, can still put innovation in the market. And this is what we have outside is what we call the ring model. Is also another framework that is connected to the first one, and they try to leverage some strategic advantage into organization. For each of these areas, we have different techniques. Many of them you know it already. If I tell you, okay, talk about structural agility, how we can make sure that we change something, for example, and it's going to be embraced by people, these new procedures, then you might probably come up with certain ideas already. Maybe people struggle with mental agility, and that's something we already know. And then these new techniques and theories also are connected to the ring model, which is just trying to create a company that effectively can adapt to exponential change in the market. And our enterprise agility model is connected also to this. So let's go back a little bit to the 5 types of agility. And the first type of agility we have at the bottom of the cake, and this is something that Toby mentioned in a webinar a few weeks ago, is mental agility. And mental agility, how well people can reframe a situation, can see a situation from a different perspective with different values, even if they are under stress, if things are changing every time. When things are changing all the time, in general, people get stuck. They don't know what to do. And that's generate kind of paralysis in the organization. So for us, mental agility is crucial as it develops new kind of individuals and employees that allow them to adapt to new situations, even if they are under stress. The second is social agility, as I mentioned, is how people connect. Then we have outcomes agility, is the possibility for the company to realign the strategy in record time. Then we have a structural agility, which is how we change the procedures in the organization and the roles with the minimum impact on the organizational health. And we have technical agility, which is more the classic agility, the manifesto agility that we were talking about. And what we usually say is, even if you need to change something on a software or something, imagine very small, a procedure, which is structural agility, you always need to cut the cake in a vertical way, right? I remember when I was a kid, I loved toffee. So my mom used to do toffee cakes, you know, the sponge cakes with toffee in the middle, and I used to just, you know, keep away, just remove the sponge and take the toffee in the middle, right? This is not what we want with a powerful strategy. With a powerful strategy, we always cut the cake vertically, which means that even if you need to change a software in your organization or is related to software, you need to evaluate the other 4 types of agility. So any plan that you wanted to be successful has to have a little bit of the other areas. If you change, and I have so many examples that unfortunately we don't have time, but maybe when we go through the question, I can give you some more examples, that even if you change something on the technical agility side, then you need to make sure that at least that plan is going to adapt the procedures, minimally adapt this. Also consider which changes in the outcomes agility we need. If people are connecting or not well, which changes we need to do there. and then if people are flexible enough for this change. And when I'm saying that it's not about creating a gigantic plan for change, but a very tiny, but that considers these 5 types of agility in order to make a change. So let's go for questions, Toby. I don't know if you have, they are the questions, people have questions that I might be able to answer.
A couple of questions. So Kanessa is going to be moderating the question. Kanessa, over to you.
Yes, so we've got a couple questions from Jason, who wants to know, what are some of the quick things to look at to get a feel for organizational health?
Okay, yeah. So this is a very interesting question. Is one of the things I try to see is how much private life of a person is impacted by the company, by working in that company. If your private life or the private life of the employees is highly impacted, it means that organizational health is not high, is not good, right? Imagine if they are calling me all the time, anytime in the morning, because there is problem with in the company with the software. I need to do long hours. Maybe I try to meet my wife or my husband. I have to cancel it. I have to pick up my kids, and I have to go maybe later. So this is one of the things we try to evaluate as an easy thing to see, where we indirectly evaluate how good organizational health is. So one of the things we want to see is what's the impact on people's private life. The higher the impact, the lower generally the organizational health is. The other thing you can also see when you are trying to go to see organizational health is how, and that's also related to social agility, how people connect. Do they talk to each other? Do they talk about whatever they want? Do they express their ideas? Or they feel fear about expressing their ideas? And also as a consultant, you can see if people are changing the ways of expressing when there are certain key people of the organization in the room. Okay, and that's going to give you some clue about organizational health in that company. But I think the first one is the easiest one to check. I hope I answered the question. Well, thank you. Any other question, guys?
Yes, we have another one. Can you expand on internal conflict in the company? You mentioned everyone kind of fighting over an architect. How would someone handle that?
So in companies, there are 2 types of conflict. This is high level, right? But there are 2 types of conflict, which is positive conflict and negative conflict. So in a positive conflict, you have a conflict, and then, for example, with your partner, you want to go to the cinema, and your partner wanted to go for dinner, right? And you start laughing and say, "Oh, you always think that way." And you find a solution, and then you say, "Okay, next time we go to the cinema, let's go for dinner." This is a positive conflict. Now, with negative conflict, you start shouting, you don't feel comfortable about the situation, etc. So when we're talking about negative conflict, is something that is not bringing anything good, but more dysfunctionalities in teams. Then when the markets are changing all the time, if we do not have the right procedures, so we are talking about, in our courses, we also talk about different types of resilience. So resilience is how you can recover from certain situation. And then in order to recover well in a company, you have procedural resilience, which is how the procedures are going to help me to recover. You have social resilience, how the people around me is going to help me recover. You have technical resilience, how the tools I use help me to recover. And well, you have different types of resilience. But one of the important things here is, after the conflict, do I feel that I gain new knowledge? Do I feel that I connect better with the other person? Do I feel that we find certain working agreements, or at least we are trying to go in certain direction where I feel comfortable with this? And or I feel that it's more conflict in the company. And then when we have a high level of these market disruptions, people start getting, where you don't have the right tools, procedures, etc. They start getting a little bit more nervous about the situation. They start protecting their teams, and then this start coming this kind of football, football match idea of me against them, my team against the other, and we start fighting for resources and skills and people. And this is the kind of thing we do not, or we need to find a way with clear working agreements, procedures, structures, and roles that support the positive way. And also people have to be aware. One of the things we try to check if teams have, or at least know, techniques to diminish these functionalities, or to when they face a problem, they have tools to use to try to positively find solutions.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions?
We've got two more.
Yeah.
One is, according to you, like in your opinion, what are the steps that the change agent need to follow when he or she guides the enterprise towards the agile way of working? And what are the priorities?
Okay, so one of the things we need to understand is, first of all, from my perspective, I might be wrong, but from my perspective, classic agile do not give an answer to so many different things that you need when you wanted to expand agility to the rest of the organization. One of the key things in an organization to have high innovation is to have diversity, to have different kind of people with different ideas coming from different backgrounds. So this is great, and you need diversity in company. We don't want everyone thinking in the same way. But the issue we have with diversity is that you need to have teams that work well. And then, as I said before, people coming, imagine you have a lawyer that always cares about seeing something at the end of the process. You have someone from the financial team that who just cares about numbers, and then a software developer and other people, and then how you make all these people work together. So that's the first thing we need to think is how we're going to produce alignment in those behaviors, how we're going to make sure this team work fine. And this is what we call the value stream. So when we produce a product, since someone comes up with an idea until we produce this product, we're going to have a bunch of people that can be coming from different areas. So the first thing is, and it's a basic thing, but it's very important, is first thing is how do I make sure that people from different backgrounds are going to work together? The second thing, an important thing here is, are those people open to try as a team different things? And obviously there, when I say as a team, it means that the team needs to have some working agreement. This working agreement has to be functional, and then they need to understand that the new reality is exponential. So things are going to change all the time in the market. And if things change, one of the key things for a consultant is to understand that sometimes you are not going to achieve everything you had in your mind. You're going to feel frustrated. People are going to feel frustrated. And I think one of the key things for a change consultant and for people in an exponential company is to manage their frustrations in a way that do not produce more frustrations, right? How do I, as a change consultant, I have higher expectations when I came to this company. I thought that I could be able to achieve something, and then maybe I didn't, and I feel frustrated, and how I will be able to manage these frustrations. And then also how leadership in the company can adjust expectations and the promises. What I promise to my customers, I will deliver. I will not be able to deliver that. And how I adjust my expectations in a way that my company and the people in my company still feel safe. Okay. So that was a long answer. So any other thing, guys? I hope you find it today interesting and you are able to understand a little bit more of the new ways of we are Enterprise Agility University, we are trying to create new ways of what I call modern change management, but based on enterprise agility and exponentiality. That for us is crucial. And exponentiality is one of the things that was not considered, from my perspective. Maybe you think I'm wrong, and you are right to think I'm wrong. That was not considered in classic agility, and that has a huge impact on individuals and also in the techniques we use.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That's all we have time for right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But
exactly.
what I might be able to do is send the questions to you, and maybe you can type a little something up.
Awesome.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much, Erich. I know this is 6 o'clock in the morning for you in Thailand. So thank you so much for waking so early to spend time with us. Really appreciate spending time with us and sharing your knowledge. So quick announcement next month. So every last Thursday of the month is going to be our meetup. And next month, we have Sunil Mundra, who has written a very world famous book called Enterprise Agility, Being Agile in a Changing World. So he works for ThoughtWorks and he's located out of Singapore, and he will be presenting next month, Leading Enterprise Change. So we invite all of you. We'll be sharing more information through our meetup. With that, we thank each one of you for coming and spending your evening with us. Have a wonderful long weekend, and we will stay connected, and we will share the recording with you next week. Thank you again.
Guys. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for
Thank you so much.
Good night, guys. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.